Hi, welcome to another one of our videos where today I'm talking about why it's good to actually make mistakes when you're using single leg exercises. Often there's people that are scared of doing these exercises and over rely on using a stick or support to help them be able to do the movement, which is okay to a degree, but actually is not what you want. All right, so I'm going to explain why. So single leg exercises are amazing, and there's plenty of times we've spoken about this in the past. That obviously a great way to build stability, but build actually a lot more strength than those two leg exercises, and are very much reliant on how you create power, because it's where you really are always going to jump off one leg. You run on one leg, you don't run on 2 feet on the ground. But you'll see there's a huge requirement of so many things. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong. So the trunk, the hip, the knee, the ankle, foot, all have to work simultaneously to be able to do the exercise correctly, to be able to do things like this. All right, huge amount of glute strength to control the hip so that it doesn't roll in, that you don't sort of flex only at the knee. Huge amount of ankle and foot requirement as well. Absolutely, there's a huge brain component here, so that's what the coordination comes into it. But when you become strong at this exercise, you really do become quite bulletproof at almost any leg exercise you can think of, and things that are risky for other people are not to you. So the biggest problem I see with these exercises is the difficulty in learning them. So there's a huge fear of falling. There's a huge compensation through lots of areas, they just can't actually activate the right thing, just really becoming quite stiff with the movement, obviously because there's so many moving pieces in this. So obviously there's a huge problem with older adults, and we see them moving to walking frames and stuff like that. But in the gym, even before the walking frame, they're actually sort of finding ways to create a walking frame and believing it's making it safe, but over relying on it, or even just getting too much support from the trainer to not make mistakes all the time, actually sort of teaching their body how to stabilize from not doing what it should be doing, but from finding things to hang on to. So when you want to learn how to do these, it's actually good to make the mistakes. So the mistakes are actually absolutely necessary. The best way to understand this is like, how do you, if you remembered riding a bike when you were a kid, and you had the training wheels just like this kid here, and the dad's holding onto him as well. So at first you had to learn to do this to be able to keep the bike upright. You would just smash if you didn't, all right? But there had to be a time when you removed the training wheels. First maybe you took one away, but then the kid just learns how to tip the bike to one side. He still hasn't learned how to stabilize that bike. There has to come a point where you remove both the wheels, and it becomes a bit scary, but you've got to control it. So you want to be in a controlled environment and minimize the risk. But without doing that, the kid will never learn how to stabilize the bike. And things happen so quickly. There's so many moving pieces, but without the challenge, there'll be no improvement. This kid will always remain stiff and will never be able to ride a bike. All right. So when you think about learning single leg exercises, you got to get rid of the training wheels. You got to at some point get rid of them and just accept that you've got to make some mistakes. This is where you minimize the risks by having a general progression, which I'll show you shortly. Also remember, how did this toddler learn to stand up? At some point you were a toddler. How did you learn how to stand up? You didn't, hopefully you weren't given a stick, because if you were given a stick you would have really set yourself up for developmental problems. You had to learn how to go through the process. If you help that kid to stand up by lifting him up and holding him, or her, then you're really not teaching their stabilizer system how to do it on its own. And this kid has to learn from trial and mistake how to evolve and adapt to the problem. And they're going to make heaps of them. But that's basically how they educate the nervous system and teach the joints on what roles they play to create movement. So stability has to precede movement. All right, and to do that, you're going to have to make mistakes. So the only time when support would be needed is in the severe cases, say, of diseases like MS, stroke, and in this case here's a picture of a spinal cord injury. This is where we may need the stick to make the movement safe and achievable for this person, but Really the problem here is the brain needs to be remembered on how to do it. Like they understand what you're saying, but the nervous system itself is severed, so the communication's not getting through. So we have to sort of go back to the beginning and sort of cheat on the system to come at it that way. But even for this case, we don't really want to stay on the stick too long, because then he just learns to rely on the stick. So, but for the rest of us, the problem we have is not from a severed spinal cord; it's from not getting the mistakes, not having enough mistakes, being subjected to the challenge enough. So the use it or lose it theory comes in here. Another example, here's another client of ours where she had a side effects to some medication that meant that she had a loss of balance. So we had to subject her, and initially she had a walking stick for quite a long time. So to get away from the stick, we had to subject her to these challenges. And you can see where we've got her walking over hurdles, standing on different surfaces, barefoot, even coming up onto the step here. So this is the only way that she was able to get her ability to walk back. We could have developed strength, it wouldn't have changed a single thing, because it happens on a reflex level. So you can see here we're standing close by, but we don't help her if she's doing it well. We're there to minimise the risk, a bit like the kid on the bike with the training wheels. The training wheels are off, but we're there to catch him if he falls, right? But we don't hold them and we don't give them things to help them. They've got to work it out themselves. All right, so this is how you make something risky less risky. But the risk is definitely there, and the challenge must be there, or there is no change to the stability. Mistakes are always made. You just got to minimise and make it safe. So examples of this is commonly what we see to try and improve strength in believing it's safe. Yeah, sure, it's safe, but you're going to do absolutely nothing. I'd actually argue it's actually unsafe, because then this person now will probably end up falling over because they have no method of stabilising. Their method of stabilising is to hold on to something, is to grab something. When it's not there, and it won't be in the real world, now you have nothing. So the inevitable falling over will happen. So always remember, strength cannot override instability, right, ever. So progression. So in the beginning, you've never seen the exercise, you don't understand what to do. So we may use the stick here, we may even hold on to a wall, and that tells you this is to try and educate you on, okay, what am I supposed to do? Once you've understood what to do, get rid of the stick, get rid of the wall, get rid of things. A Swiss ball here is sort of like this transition between that and that. This one here is so much harder than that. I can put a huge amount of load in this. This one's still harder, just because the ball does help you a bit, but the benefit of the ball is it moves around. So if you rely on the ball, you'll still fall over. You want to get to having no ball. Barefoot is good. On a sensor mat here is even better. Here is the single leg squat when we move in all directions, because you want to be able to move in all directions and have the hip, knee, ankle all be able to coordinate, and the trunk to be able to hold you in position so you don't fall. And you can do any direction you want, and it's no risk. Once you've sort of progressed past that, adding load is obviously the most obvious progression. But then you want to also be able to learn how to move fast and learn how to brake. So especially playing sports, but even if you're an older adult, because slips don't happen in slow motion, they happen quickly. All right, so if you learn how to do them quickly and practice them in a controlled environment, it's not risky and life is easy. What happens if you're really struggling? Well, you can just practice standing on single leg with your eyes shut. This is what we call proprioceptive training. This will help you to learn how to stop falling. You should be able to hold this for 30 seconds. You can move into horizontal position. This is actually quite a tricky exercise. You see she's holding a stick. This is a lot harder than it looks. If I remove the stick, this is really hard. This ball moves quite a lot. Huge amount of glutes needed on this one, even more so than the standing one, because there's really little help from the quads. And you could progress back to 2 legs if you're really struggling with one. Go back to 2 legs is easy. Have some stability challenge. So again, we've got eyes shut and learning how to get the proprioceptive system to work better. If you need any more help, definitely get our resources here with our free report and the advanced program, which has 100 programs here that you can get your hands on. But just understand that you really want to practice a lot of this stuff with a Swiss ball, no stick. Some people are actually better with dumbbells, to be honest. They're actually better when they're loaded down than when they're just body weight. The extra load just sort of sticks them into the ground better. But yeah, definitely get rid of the stick, stop using it. If you make mistakes, so what? Learn from them. That's the only way you're going to get better at it. Alright, so I hope you've enjoyed that video. We'll see you on our next one.